what I always try to focus on is to emphasize that the core of gamification design is something we call human-focused design, as opposed to function-focused design. So most systems are function-focused. It assumes that people already have motivation and desire to do the behavior, and then it optimizes for efficiency, for ergonomics, or for safety. So it's a bit like a factory where you assume that people do their work because you pay them to do it, and then you figure out how to maximize your production, right, your efficiency. But human-focused design remembers that people in a system, they have feelings, they have motivations, they have insecurities, they have reasons why they do or do not want to do something, and it optimizes for that. So that's more like a theme park where you design it to be really, really fun, and then you can predict that people automatically want to line up for hours and hours to enjoy that fun. Now, what's interesting here is that in the case of a factory, you're paying these people to stay in line or to go through the regular, boring factory life. But in the case of a theme park, they're actually paying you to stand in line for hours and hours just to enjoy those few minutes of fun. And the reason why we call this gamification is because I believe the gaming industry is the first one to master human-focused design. Because if you think about it, there's no real purpose to playing a game, right? You never have to play a game. You have to do a lot of other things like, pay your bills, do your training, exercise, whatnot. Even if you don't like it, you just have to persevere and push through. But and again, for a game, you never have to play a game. The moment a game is no longer fun, you leave the game. You play another game, you check your email, you go to YouTube. Even if a game was amazing for 11 months, if on month number 12, it becomes boring, people leave. So games have lived in this extremely brutal environment where they have to constantly engaging the brain. And so they've spent decades or even centuries, depending on how you qualify game, figuring out how to get people to come back every single day, sometimes for 6, 7, 8 hours, and doing very repetitive actions like throwing out a bird, throwing out a bird, throwing out a bird, or matching 3 gems, matching 3 gems, matching 3 gems. And now we're learning from that discipline, and that is why we call it gamification. And one of the most important things why gamification applies to loyalty so well is because loyalty is also about long-term engagement. And most loyalty programs out there are actually not what I think are truly loyalty programs, because they basically just say, if you do this actions, I'm going to give you a bigger reward, right? And I would call these mercenary programs, because if you give people rewards, right, and they only come to you because you pay them the most, that's not loyalty, right? That's being a mercenary. If you pay me the most, I'll go to you. If they pay me more, I'll go to them. Then you, by definition, have no loyalty. And so true loyalty is built on engagement. Even if you don't give them the most money, they love interacting with your brand. They want to be part of your experience. When your friends say, hey, look, that company, it's so overpriced, people are so stupid to buy from them because you can get something cheaper somewhere else, the customers are defending this company, like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. They have good values, they take care of their customers, and so I've seen, in California, there's this fast food chain called In-N-Out. It just sells burgers. And I have a friend who she takes these In-N-Out burgers and she sticks it on her expensive purse because she's very passionate about this burger chain. And so we all thought that was really funny, but because she really was inspired by how they treat the cows and how they make the burgers, et cetera, et cetera. So that is true loyalty. They never gave her more rewards. So this is why it's so important to understand, how do you drive true loyalty to your audience, to customers, so that they want to come back, they want to refer their friends and just keep buying. So this is where I introduce the Octalysis Framework. It's called the Octalysis because it's a combination between the word octagon and analysis. And inside there is the 8 core drives that motivate all our behavior. And outside, there's an example list, not exhaustive list, but just an example list of a variety of game design techniques or strategies that could bring out those 8 core drives. Things like, points or badges or group quests or avatars, things like that. Now, This chart is pretty busy. So at the beginning, we usually only talk about the center. Now, what's unique about these 8 core drives is that everything we do in life, inside or outside of a game, is based on one or more of these 8 core drives, which means that if there's none of these 8 core drives there, there's zero motivation, no behavior happens. Each and one of you are here because of at least one of these 8 core drives. Some people are here because of core drive 7, unpredictability and curiosity. Hey, I'm just curious, what is this gamification thing about? So you show up. Some people are here because of core drive 5, social influence and relatedness. Hey, a friend told me about it, a colleague invited me, so I'm here. I imagine many of you are here because of core drive 2, development and an accomplishment. Hey, I really want to improve my skills and do my job better, reach the next level. Occasionally, we have people in the room that's motivated by core drive 1, epic meaning and calling. Hey, I really think this can change the world and it's where the future's at. I want to be part of it. When I go to a variety of countries and do my speeches or workshops there could be core drive 6, scarcity and impatience. Like, oh, this speaker only comes to my country, once every 5 years. So I better reprioritize my schedule to show up. And when I'm doing these like $20,000 in-house workshops for companies, internal ones, a lot of employees might be there just because of core drive 8, loss and avoidance. Oh, I don't want to get fired, so I show up. And hopefully that's not the only reason why you're here, but the key thing is that without these 8 core drives, no behavior happens. I wouldn't be here sharing, you wouldn't be here listening. Your coworkers and employees are not working and your customers are not buying. Nothing happens. Even with something like eating, right? Without these 8 core drives, we don't even eat. We just starve to death. Okay, so every behavior is based on that. A lot of times people, eat because of core drive 8, loss and avoidance. You don't want to starve to death, or you just don't want the negative sensation of feeling hungry. But a lot of people don't eat just to prevent that, right? Some people eat in a social setting. People are together, so let's eat, even though they're not feeling discomfort with hunger. Some people are eating because of unpredictability. They're kind of bored. They want to open the fridge to keep seeing what's in there. Some people eat because of the scarcity. Hey, this is a very exclusive opportunity to eat this kind of high-end food, so I got to take advantage of it. But again, without these 8 core drives, no behavior happens. So the quick form to use the Octalysis framework is to define a behavior that you want anyone to do, right? It could be customers, could be employees, could be your children, could be your students, anyone. We want these type of people to do these type of activities. And then you just go through those 8 core drives. What among these 8 core drives already motivate that behavior? Because again, if there's none, they don't do it. And then you brainstorm around them to think, okay, how do we increase these 8 core drives in the motivation factors so they'll want to do it more? So today we're going to go through these 8 core drives, what they are, and we're going to showcase a few case studies that my company has done as loyalty programs, so you can get an idea of how this plays out in different projects. And then we're going to look at the different natures of these core drives. Some are what we call white hat motivation core drives. It makes people feel more powerful, in control, they feel good, but there's no sense of urgency, so they procrastinate. There's what we call black hat motivation core drives. It makes people feel urgent, obsessed, even addicted, but in the long run, it could leave a bad taste in their mouths and they could burn out. And then we look at what difference between intrinsic motivation core drives and extrinsic motivation core drives. One interesting thing is when I first created the framework in 2012, I just wanted a tool to help companies solve problems. I didn't have any ambitions in academia in mind, but nowadays, if you go to Google Scholar and you search for the Octalysis framework, you'll see, I think now 3,500 PhD thesis, academic journals, all referencing my frameworks. There are many people out there that actually have a PhD based on my framework as their thesis. So they have a higher degree than me on my own framework now. So I don't know if we disagree who is the higher authority there. But I just feel really, really blessed that the work I did out of intellectual curiosity not only stands strong in the commercial world, but also in the academic world too. All right, so let's look at the first core drive. The first core drive is called epic meaning and calling. And this is basically when people are motivated because they're part of something bigger than themselves. And you often see this theme in games. Like the game will tell you, hey, the world's about to end, but somehow you're the only person qualified to save the world. And it feels powerful and you feel great and you really want to go do the activity because the majority of people on a day-to-day basis, they don't get to experience the feeling that they're making a difference. They're doing something that has impact. So if whenever they interact with their brand, they do feel like they're part of something bigger, they're impacting the world, then they just want to be supporting your brand and telling their friends about it more and more. So this core drive deals with things like sustainability, or it's like, hey, if you buy from us, we're gonna plant a tree, or we're gonna give the shoes or food to people in third world countries. It helps ties with things like religion and faith, or politics, or honor, anything that's a higher level theme to the experience. That's what connects with people on epic meaning and calling. And one example I like to showcase on that, it's not my case study per se, but Tesla, they have a mission statement, right? Accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Now, you probably know most companies have some kind of mission statement, purpose statement that seems big and grand. It's about making the world better. And you'll see that with Epic Meaning and Calling Core Drive 1, the key thing that you need to get right is believability. People have to see that it's true, it actually makes an impact, or else they think it's a slap in the face. Like, yo, you're just saying you do big things, but you're just actually doing the opposite. So to create believability, in 2014, it's an old screenshot, so it's low resolution, but Tesla said, hey, all our electric car patents can be used by car companies, by everyone out there to make electric cars. And at the time, a lot of people were very doubtful that, hey, what's going on? Are you trying to trick your competitors? Is this a trap? Why are you letting your competitors use your patents? And they're like, yeah, it's because our purpose statement is to accelerate the world towards sustainable energy, right? And for us to fulfill our purpose statement, we have to have more than one car company to create electric cars. If we only have one car company in the world that makes it, then we cannot be successful. We can only be successful. A lot of them are doing it. Now, hopefully we're still number one, but we just cannot even begin to do our mission statement if there's only one car company. So when they did that, a lot of people saw this like, wow, they're serious. They really want to protect the environment. And they jumped in, they want to be investors. They bought the cars. And I was an investor at the time. And so I saw, like, when you look at the financial statements, it's like losing money. There's like every car they sell, they lose money. And everyone says, oh, they're going to die this quarter. They're going to die next quarter. But then people keep fighting about it, saying, hey, this is important. We got to support it. And the cars that came out, even though they do look slick and cool, there was all this problem with manufacturing. The panels were off a line and people were complaining about that. So there's all these critics that talk about like, oh, the Audi, the Porsche, those electric cars are going to be the Tesla killers. And literally, when you look in the forums, the people who fight back, they're like, well, does Porsche help with the environment? No. Does Audi do that? No. Blah blah blah. And so they're literally choosing to be sacrificial. Like, I don't care if the company's not good, the finance not good, the car has problems. I believe in the mission statement that I'm part of something bigger than myself, and I want to do it. So generally, when we do epic meaning and calling, you want to tie it to higher level themes like honor, justice, saving the world, defeating a common enemy. That's often applied by politicians, unfortunately. Freedom, uniqueness, faith, all those things. Privacy, lots of businesses, they build, like Apple, right? Apple's marketing is like, we value privacy. Privacy is our number one. That's their epic meaning and calling. And sometimes you see some companies is like, hey, instead of saying, hey, you can get rich, which could feel sleazy, it's like, hey, you can obtain true freedom, financial freedom, right? So you go from something a little sleazy to something that it feels grand and epic. So again, each one of these core drives has like dozens of hours of literature, how to do it better, how to add believability, how to reinforce it, and dozens of examples. But obviously, we're here to just kind of get the idea what these core drives are. So I'm going to move on to core drive 2, development accomplishment. So this is the core drive that says we're motivated because we're improving ourselves, we're leveling up, we're achieving mastery. And so this is where most of the points and badges thing you might have heard of in gamification falls into. Points are just mathematical counters. It shows a sense of progression. So even though you're doing the same things over and over and over again, at least you see this progress bar getting bigger and bigger, or this number getting higher and higher, and you feel like you're getting somewhere, right? With the airline industry, it's like, oh, I will go from silver status, and I'm gold status, and platinum status. You feel like there's progression. And then badges are what we call achievement symbols. And achievement symbols, they symbolize accomplishment, right? And they can be in many different forms. They could be badges or trophies or crowns or uniform changes. It could be black belt, white belt in martial arts, which of course borrowed itself into quality management, which is called Six Sigma. But the key thing is that it must symbolize an accomplishment. If you give people a silly badge for everything they do, then it has no meaning. It's just an icon, right? It's like the difference between going to a chess tournament, working hard, getting first place, and having a trophy with your name on it, versus just going to a store and buying a trophy and write your name on it, right? It's the same symbol, but they symbolize very different things. So you have to design why people are proud of this achievement. Why do they want to brag about it to their friends and family and people on the platform? Now, this is a framework that we'll center around for a while, and also a case study here. This is a loyalty program that my company, the Octalysis Group, created for Porsche, and the client was the Volkswagen Group at Porsche, and it was deployed in Austria. And the reason why we did this case study was because Porsche, they realized that they don't have a lot of good touch points to their customers, which means it's hard for them to engage their customers, right? Because if you think about it, usually you don't really interact with their car company that much. You interact with the dealerships, you interact with the car maintenance people, and sometimes you go on some online forum and you chat with other owners. But as the car company, they don't really talk to you. So they can do big new advertisement campaigns, but maybe it reaches, maybe it doesn't. So they invited us to go and design a gamified loyalty program for them, and it's called Boneo Journey. And basically, what it is that, first of all, it looks like a game, right? A futuristic city with a futuristic car, and based on how you draw. Oh, and then to play this game, because it looks like a game, right? And some people say, well, gamification is for kids, it's not serious. Now, to play this game, you actually have to first own a Porsche. So in order to play the game, you cannot have to be a grown-up. I think so. And based on how you drive your Porsche and how you interact with other Porsche drivers who have the app, you will get certain resources, perks to customize your car. It'll give you perks like free coffee, free donuts, but most importantly, it allows you to upgrade to your next car more easily. Because they want to sell your more expensive Porsche, but and of course the Volkswagen family itself also owns more expensive brands like Bentley and Bugatti. So this was deployed in Austria, and they saw that users spent 5.5 minutes in the app every single day, and they were not even allowed to use the app while they were driving. So they would make the drive, and then they would stop, and they would take out the app, and they, on average, they would spend 5 minutes. So that means kind of on average, half of the people spend 5 minutes, more than 5 minutes, half of them spend less than 5 minutes. And this is actually really strong, because if you think about it, you almost never use an app on a daily basis for physical products you buy. You use apps every day regarding social media, with your YouTube, your gaming, your Instagram. You probably use apps every day related to your work, like your email, your Slack, but you don't really interact with your computer company every day, or your desk company, your chair, or in your car, right? And so this was a very strong engagement metric, which they could start pushing things, upselling things, and establishing stronger loyalty. So they were really excited about that. Unfortunately, while they were planning to deploy it Europe-wide, that's when COVID-19 hit. And as you can imagine, COVID-19, it created a lot of difficulty and hardship to a company like Volkswagen. And so the program was halted. And so now they're still stuck in this corporate bureaucracy to see if they're still going to be pushed out to more and more places. But the project itself was seen as a huge success, and the metric, this is the metric we can share, but obviously there were also a lot of other good metrics that that we can't share, but it's pretty impressive too. Yeah, and we're gonna circle back to this case study a few, because usually when I do this presentation, I like, for 8 core drives, I share different case studies, like 8 different case studies that most of them we've done as Octalysis group. Sometimes, occasionally I'll share 1 or 2 that's not, but I think for a focus objective like loyalty, it's good to stick to the same projects so we can explain how that one project uses these 8 core drives. So core drive 3 is empowerment of creativity and feedback. So this is kind of like Lego. You give users the basic building blocks, and there's an infinite amount of ways for them to utilize their creativity, try different strategies, see feedback, and adjust. And that's really engaging. And so this core drive deals with things like self-expression, strategy, meaningful choices, autonomy. And you'll see that it's on the right top of the octagon, which means that you'll see later that it's a white hat right brain core drive, which is usually the longest lasting type of motivation, because our creativity just constantly flows out. And all the games that have this core drive are longer lasting. Actually, all the timeless games in the world have this core drive. Chess, poker, mahjong, golf has this core drive, and they don't need to add more content to stay fun. Like chess does not need to keep adding more pieces or boards or maps, whereas other games that rely on other core drives, the moment they stop doing their weekly new heroes and monthly new quests, people stop playing them. So for Boneo, we allow the customer to customize their futuristic looking car based on their resources, right? So if they drive around with a car and they drive safely, they do all these things, they get the resource and allows them their car to eventually look cooler and cooler, and they can choose the color and they can express themselves more. So it's not a linear type of loyalty program. Most of the time, loyalty programs are just like very linear. Everyone plays the exact same way. Buy 10 and get 1 free. Buy 10 and get 1 free. No one is thinking about how they want to play it more. No one is strategizing. No one's looking forward to, okay, the next step, I'm going to do this and I'll be more awesome. I'll be more complete. They're not like, the mentality of playing a game is obviously different from a linear, just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to do the mechanical things. And that was part of what engaged people so much. Again, even when they are grown-ups with strong financial foundations. Core Drive 4 is ownership and possession. So this is basically saying, because we feel like we own something, we want to improve it, we want to protect it, and we want to get more of it. So this deals with things like virtual goods and virtual currencies. It's also the drive that makes us want to collect stamps or baseball cards. There's also more abstract views, such as if we customize and we invest a lot of our own time to customize our Dropbox folders, our Facebook profile, LinkedIn profiles, we have more attachment, hence ownership over the experience. So even if a new technology that comes out that's supposed to be better, we don't want to switch because that one doesn't understand me. This one does. And that's the same also for systems that constantly are learning about you, your preferences, so it's serving to you before you even ask for it. So that's where when a new technology that's better, it's like, hey, that one doesn't know what I want. This one does. I call the Alfred effect, which is, Batman has a butler, Alfred, and Alfred knows what Batman wants. So if someone knocks on Batman's door and says, hey, I can replace Alfred because I'm younger, I can work faster, Batman doesn't want to switch because, Alfred grew up with him and knows all his preferences. All right, so back to Boneo. When it comes to ownership and possession, the key is having perks and collectibles. So, we talked about that they could get certain perks like coffee. You see later that one of the core drives is scarcity, which is like giving a bit of tension about, hey, you have to do this soon, you have to do this now, or there's only 3 left, right? That drives people to take fast action. So we have the countdown timer here, and people can have collectibles. So they just start finding out things they have to do to get more collectibles. And like I said earlier, you also have a lot of ownership over your car. So the way to upgrade it and make it better and buy a next car, your next Porsche, that's all connected to that ownership core drive. Core drive 5 is social influence and relatedness. And this will be the last example we use for the Boneo one before we move on to some other examples. And this is basically everything you do based on what other people do, think, or say. So it deals with things like competition, collaboration, group quests, gifting. And it also has this relatedness piece, which deals with things like, for instance, nostalgia. Like if you see a product that reminds you of your childhood, you automatically have a higher chance of buying the product. If you meet someone from the same hometown, let's say you're working abroad, you have a higher chance of striking a deal with that person. And so in Boneo, we have social dynamics and group quest proximity bonus. So we'll have things where it says, hey, there is this area, sector 08008, there's some reward there. And you can see other Boneo drivers in the area. And if you all go to that area, then it's a group quest and everyone gets a reward together. So people feel like there's a connection with others and they feel like, they're not playing solo. They recognize, hey, you also not only you have a Porsche just like me, you're part of the experience we're playing together. And because you are here, I get my bonus. So that's cool. There's another mechanical proximity bonus, which is basically like if you do a desired behavior, like check in, and it says, oh, actually within 3 kilometers, someone else is checking in, someone also checked in. That means you get a bigger bonus. So you can either strategize and have your friends say, oh, let's all get here and check in together at the same time, so we all get a huge proximity bonus. Or you can just test your luck, go to a place and see, oh, how am I lucky? Are there cars around me to do it? This mechanic we've used in different setups too, like let's say a payment app. It's like, hey, if you do a payment, but somehow someone in the same zip code within the same minute also made a payment, then you get a small perk or a small bonus discount, whatever. And so, like I said, some people would just do it and they're like, aha, I'm so lucky, right? Or they might even strategize a bit, say, usually 5 p.m. is the best chance to get it. And so now they're thinking about using your app, they're strategizing, and they sometimes would just tell their friends to all come together and do it at the same time, which means customers are reminding each other to use the app and pay and all that stuff. So these are all social dynamics within a gamified context. And of course, it's highly valuable for loyalty programs. Core Drive 6 is scarcity and impatience. So this is basically saying you want something simply because it's difficult to obtain, it's very exclusive. And the case study that we have is actually the loyalty program for LATAM Airlines. So they're the largest airline in Latin America, Central South America. And this was more about acquiring people to join the loyalty program and also having them redeem their points more. So they wanted us to design a 1-month gamified campaign to get a lot of people to sign up to the loyalty program, get their credit card, and not only redeem points for the loyalty, the airline products, but also what they call alternative products, which is they have a lot of partner companies that you can use the points to redeem for, and they want to increase that too. So we designed with some scarcity in mind. So when we launched it, we had that countdown timer. So again, there's a scarcity in opportunities, but also scarcity in time. If you tell people, hey, you can sign up anytime you want, then they're like, okay, that's cool. Let me sign up tomorrow, next week. And they procrastinate and then never do it. So it's very useful to say, no, if you procrastinate, if you don't do it now, then you'll never be able to do it. So there's a countdown timer. Also, like this is all in Spanish. So we tell people that, hey, you're selected as the 1% to use this app. Now, Unlike most marketing campaigns, this is not like making things up. I always tell my clients, don't say anything that's untrue. This actually came with a story that was a crisis for our engagement. So when we first was hired to help them design this, they were telling us, hey, we want to create a design that gets everyone to use it, and they should invite all, like we should get as many people to use as possible. They're gonna send it to their whole email base. So we started designing the experience, right? Everyone should play it and everyone should invite all their friends. So it's a big social kind of experience, Core Drive 5, which we just talked about that. But then middle way through, right, many months into the project, there's a executive came in and he said, we've never done something like this. It's very risky. Like, let's just do it for 1% of the target audience for our email list. And some companies might say, okay, we'll just do the exact same thing, but just for 1% of the people. But for us, we don't want to do that because it's not designed for that. So that was a crisis for us. And we had to turn it around and say, all right, let's switch from a Core Drive 5 social influence strategy to a Core Drive 6 scarcity strategy. Like, you're actually selected, you're lucky to be the 1% to try out the experience. And so we made it a fun theme. There's some epic meaning calling about uncovering important treasures in the jungles in South America. And again, this is all Spanish, but in the trailer video, in the YouTube comments, people are really excited. It's like, hey, let's go. Hey, this is so exciting. And this is very important because most of the time, the comments in their other videos, it's all about like, hey, the flight was delayed, I'm so angry, or they lost my luggage, they should pay me. It was all complaints. And suddenly they have this that a lot of people were just excited to talk about. Again, creating gamified experiences makes people excited, right? Versus just function-focused design. Oh, we got delayed. Here's some money back, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, fine. Give me my money back, but I still think you're a terrible company, right? And I'll never try it again. So because of that, the scarcity built in many other things, the average email open rates was above 60%. The click to open rates increased by 280% compared to all the other gamified campaigns that they've done, and more than 1,300% versus their traditional campaigns. So if you see here, they've also tried their own gamified campaigns, which actually does way better than their own traditional campaigns. And then when we come in as the Octalysis group with more expertise, we were able to increase it by 3 times more. So even if you don't work with real experts, I highly encourage you to try your own. And if you do it well, you apply these frameworks and core drives, you should be able to get a strong increase in your metrics. The teaser video engagement rate was 2.5%. And while that might not sound like a lot, their historical average was 0.014%. So we increased it by 178x. So almost 200 times higher. And people are pretty excited. And so because of that, 160,000 unique visitors went on and did 8 million interactions. On the first day, it actually crashed LATAM Airlines website because they didn't expect that 1%, right? We only targeted 1%. That 1% would get so much activity, engagement, and so they had to fix that up later. I think it's kind of bad, but also kind of good. It looked good for us, but probably not so much for the IT team. Miles accumulation had increased by 123% compared to the historical averages, and credit card acquisitions increased by 153% compared to the control group. And if you remember, there was one important thing, which is redemption with alternatives like partner companies. That skyrocketed by 1,407%, so 14x. Now, granted, that number wasn't super high to begin with, so it was pretty easy for us to increase it. But of course, anytime you increase 14x, a core business metric, everyone is quite happy about it. All right, Core Drive 7 is unpredictability and curiosity. So this is basically saying, because we don't know what's going to happen next, we're always thinking about it. And so this is heavily utilized in the gambling industry. But whenever you have a sweepstakes program, a lottery system, a Easter egg, raffle ticket, mystery box system, you have this core drive. It's also the drive that makes us want to finish a book or a movie, which is why we don't like spoilers. We don't want people to tell us how it's going to end before we're ready to know it. And another program that we designed before is actually for a hotel chain called La Quinta. And this hotel chain is in California, Mexico, and some other states. And what we were brought in to do is the La Quinta Hotels, they wanted to create a loyalty program that engaged people on a regular basis, even when they didn't need to book a hotel yet, right? And so they want to capture people before they had intent to book somewhere. And what we end up designing is a program called Play and Stay. So every day, but only for 3 times a day. Okay, so there's some scarcity. You get to roll a spinning wheel. So that's unpredictable and curiosity. And the spinning wheel will tell you, hey, you got 4,000 points towards getting a free night one day in the loyalty program, or 5,000 points. And then it says, hey, if you can answer, like, great, you got this many points. If you could answer a question about our company's brand, our marketing, or our history, then you can get 20% more. And then if you do that, it says, hey, if you invite your friends right now, then you can get 40% more. And so people end up doing that. And so with this case study, it showed that 34% of the users return every single day for 3.75 minutes. And again, this is for a hotel chain, not even like a cool car company like Porsche. It's like and it's not a super high end. It's like mid-price hotel chain. Bookings per user, so this is purchases, increased by 206%. Revenue per user increased by 132%, which is $157 against the control group. And if you look at this, 200% more people bought, and when they bought, they spent 132% more, $157. So together, these two numbers combined actually is a quite noticeable increase in revenue. And then the viral coefficient is 530%, which basically means that for each person who joined, on average, they invited 5 friends to the system, and they saw a lot of growth there. Core Drive 8 is loss and avoidance. So basically, it's pretty straightforward. You're doing something to avoid a loss. You don't want something bad to happen. It's the fear core drive. And it's very straightforward. And going back to La Quinta that we just talked about, we also had Core Drive 8 loss and avoidance in the form of, number one, FOMO, fear of missing out, right? Because you can only spend 3 times a day. So if you don't come back every day, then you miss those 3 chances, right? You come in a week later, there's 3 chances. If you come in every single day, then a week later, you have 21 chances. So you're going to lose that opportunity. Also, remember I said, when you get certain points, right, if you're like, hey, I'm really lucky, I got 10,000 points, not 2,000, but 10,000 points with my spinning wheel. And it says, hey, now answer a question to get 20% more, right? It's like, well, I don't want to lose this opportunity, this evanescent opportunity. And so I'm going to do it. And then once you do that, then it says, hey, now you have so many points. If you share with your friend now, you'll get 40% more, right? But if you leave right now, if you say no, you won't get this opportunity anymore. So even though sharing with friends, inviting friends is a pretty high friction thing, most people don't like to do it, and companies keep pushing them to do it because they work so hard to get to a high number. And if they don't do it, they'll lose the advantage there. So they do it. And that's, so loss and avoidance isn't just always about, I'll punish you. If you don't do it, I'll punish you. It's sometimes about that fear of missing out and giving an opportunity that will fade away if they don't act right now. All right. So those are the 8 core drives of the Octalysis framework. It's worth repeating again, because it's very important that to remember that every behavior we do is because of at least one of these 8. So if there's none of these 8, there's none of this behavior that will happen. And then once we understand how our customers are feeling and how we want them to feel, that's when we go outside and think about, okay, what are the game design elements and techniques that could bring out these 8 core drives? And this is important because you could have badges, but people don't feel accomplished, right? You could have all these social buttons and features, but people don't feel socially appreciated or connected. So having these game elements doesn't mean you're engaging, doesn't mean you're successful. Lots of games have these things too, and most of them are failures, right? You have to be able to bring out these 8 core drives through these game design techniques or other strategies, whatever it is, because that's when people get motivated. Now, there's also a reason why it's on the octagon shape. The left side of the octagon, we call them left brain core drives, and it's not necessarily on the left, geographically on the left side of the brain versus right side, but the left brain core drive symbolically represents our logical brain versus the right brain core drive symbolically represents our emotional brain. And I like this kind of language because this is a design tool, right? And left side, left brain, right side, right brain. It's easy to remember, easy to apply. But the most actionable thing is that the left brain core drives deal with extrinsic motivation. Things you do for a reward, a purpose, or a goal, but you don't necessarily enjoy the activity itself. So once you obtain the reward, you hit your goals, or you get used to the reward, it becomes stale, you stop doing the activity. And so this is usually good for attracting new people to join the experience and create justification afterwards. So maybe the experience is so fun, so engaging, so exciting. The moment they touch it, they want to stay in it. But people are like, I'm too busy. I don't want to try it. I don't want to try it. So say, hey, did you know that if you try it out, there's a chance you'll win a free iPad? So, oh, okay, yeah, then maybe I'll try it, right? And then afterwards, it needs to create justification that people think they didn't waste their time. So it's like, hey, at least I got some money, I got an iPad, or I got a certificate, a diploma, or hey, at least I finished season 3. Or at least I learned about how medieval politics work against each other, right? People in their brains needs to just convince themselves, I didn't waste my time, I got something out of it. And that's left brain core drives. Whereas the right brain core drives deal with intrinsic motivation. These are things that we do just because we enjoy the experience. Like we would even pay money to experience it. And even if we lost all our progress the next day, we lose our points, our badges, our NFTs, our diploma, our certificates, we would still do it today because that's how we measure our quality of lives. You know, how much time we just spend on things we enjoy doing. So for instance, we don't need a reward to enjoy using our creativity. We don't need a reward to enjoy hanging with our friends. And we actually don't need a reward to be in that suspense of unpredictability. In fact, here's an example. Like if you sit there and you press a button for 4 hours straight and you're guaranteed a paycheck, that's kind of boring, right? That's like a job at a factory. Most people don't like that. But if you sit there and you press a button for 4 hours straight, and maybe you'll get a paycheck, maybe you won't, maybe you'll even lose money. Suddenly that's casino gambling. A lot of people like that, right? It doesn't make any sense. You know, it's the same behavior. One, you're guaranteed a payout. The other one, you're most likely going to lose money because that's how the casinos make so much money. But our brains prefer the later one, because we're literally paying for the entertainment, for that excitement, for the thrill. And that's why I have friends who tell me, who comes out the casino and they tell me, hey, you guys lost $200, but that was so much fun. Let's go back next week, right? Again, it's intrinsic. And so intrinsic motivation, right brain core drives, is good for keeping people engaged in the system. They don't want just to grab the reward and run, right? They don't want to cheat. They want to participate and engage. And so when it comes to most loyalty programs, sometimes they get the reward one time, right? And you don't have another reward that's better. They don't do it anymore because they already got the reward. So in intrinsic motivation, the reward doesn't even matter. They just want to keep doing it. And that's important when you have the right brain core drive, 3, 5, 7. Give them meaningful choices and self-expression, make it more social, collaboratively or competitively, make them feel appreciated, and give them delightful surprises. So there's that's the left and right brain core drive, extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Now, most companies like to do extrinsic motivation, and it's not because it's better. It's just easier. Like if you want people to do something, it's just so much easier to just give them a reward, give them money, a badge, a certificate, as opposed to making it more enjoyable and fun. The problem is there's something called the over justification effect, which means that when people already did it for fun, they would do it for free. They want to engage. The moment you give them extrinsic rewards and then you stop giving it to them, then they don't care anymore. Even they think it's no longer worth their time, even though before they did it for free. So that's called the over justification effect. Extrinsic can kill intrinsic motivation. You probably have heard some people had hobbies and they turned their hobbies into a career and now they hate their hobbies, right? It's no longer fun. It's just, they're now doing it just for money. All right. And there's also a difference between top and the bottom of the octagon. So the top, we call them white hat motivation core drives. So if you are doing something because you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself, you're improving yourself, achieving mastery, and you're using creativity, feels really, really good. Now, the problem is that there's no urgency because you're in full control and you procrastinate. Whereas the black hat core drives on the bottom, give you urgency. So if you're always doing something to avoid a loss, you can't have something or you don't know what's going to happen next. It's still extremely powerful in driving our behavior. But in the long run, it can leave a bad taste in our mouths because, again, we feel like we're not in control of that behavior. So again, white hat motivation makes people feel powerful, in control, they feel good. There's no sense of urgency. Black hat motivation makes people feel urgent, obsessed, even addicted. But in the long run, they could burn out because this is really tied to our survival instincts, right? Avoiding danger, going after scarce resources, and explore new land. And so we feel like our brains are hardwired to deal with that way. Now, white hat core drives are good for long-term things like community management. Loyalty programs is something that I bet you've never thought of before, and creative workspaces, things that are not like one-time transactions, but long-term things. Whereas black hat core drives are ideal for one-time transactions or short bursts of activities. So it's like if you had a company and you told your employees, hey, let's have a 2-week competition. It could be exciting and fun. Adrenaline's high. People are trash talking. They're working harder. But if you have a 1-year competition, most people don't like to be in a constant state of competing with their coworkers and colleagues, and it becomes a cutthroat environment. A lot of people will drop out. And when it comes to one-time transactions, like you want people to just give you their credit cards. One client of ours is Booking.com, and they want the one-time transaction, right? So they use a lot of black hat core drives in scarcity and loss and avoidance. They'll say, hey, look, this property has been booked 4 times today, and there's only 1 room left on our site. So it's like, oh, wow, just today it's been booked 4 times. So the next one could be booked any moment. And so I don't have time to think, or I have to rush, and you click on the button, you buy. So you did the desired behavior, Booking.com make money, but you don't necessarily feel great about it because you feel like you're rushed into it, and there could be some buyer's remorse. And the reason why Booking.com can get away with this is because they're a short frequency, low frequency transaction, which means you don't buy your tickets like every week, right? So after 6 months, you already forgot about that negative feeling. And then you're like, okay, I think last time I used Booking.com, so let me do it again. I have some loyalty points. Let's do it. But if you're Amazon.com, it'll be totally different because Amazon wants people to buy 10 times a day, right? And so I firmly believe that every time you buy, you have this negative feeling, out-of-circle feeling. You just don't want to go on Amazon as often. So that's why they use other core drives, more white hat, to get people to be very driven and motivated. And so this is important, right? Some companies say, hey, we're an e-commerce site, and so let's just copy Booking.com with their strategy. And what they don't realize is in this one example, what determines success or not is frequency of purchase, because black hat motivation is only good for low frequency, intermittent things. And that's why companies copy each other and then they fail, because the situations are different. So this leads to something called the data trap. And it's connected to a common trend we see these days called data-driven design, right? And it's actually pioneered by a gaming company, Zynga, that made Farmville. So they're saying that, hey, we don't know the answer. We're just going to look at the data and we're just going to keep doing what works, right? And it sounds very sophisticated, very scientific, very good. But the problem is that because black hat motivation creates urgency, when you pay too much attention to the data, you're always going to do more black hat. Like you say, hey, we do this black hat strategy, like a torture break, and suddenly people are coming back 10 times a day and pay money. So let's keep doing this, right? And that's where you see with the early Farmville games, right? All their short-term metrics were great. Virality, monetization, retention, all the numbers were good. People loved it. They were addicted to it. And then suddenly after 7 months, no one wanted to touch it anymore. It felt demoralizing to interact with it. This is also why dictators love core drive loss and avoidance. They punish people, and they threaten to punish people, and everyone changes their behavior. And they're like, hey, look, we're data scientists, so let's do this more, right? But as human beings, we intuitively know that even though the data looks good, people are not happy. A lot of them want to escape the country, and some would even want to band together and overthrow the tyrannical dictatorship. But when we call it black hat motivation, it doesn't have any connotation that it's actually a bad thing. like I said, the real definition is white hat, you feel in control. Black hat, you feel out of control because it's based on our survival instincts. And a lot of people voluntarily put themselves in black hat motivation to go to the gym more often, to eat more healthily. And so this is a funny example where it's an alarm clock. For every time you press the snooze button, the wake me up 10 minutes later button, it destroys your money. So you're waking up because of Core Drive 8, loss and avoidance. You don't want to lose money, so you wake up. And it doesn't feel very comfortable, but you're okay with this because it's a goal you want to accomplish. You want to wake up. What people don't like is when marketers, employers, governments, educators, parents use a lot of this black hat motivation to get them to buy things they don't need, to work overtime without proper compensation and get manipulated. And a lot of people will still do the actions because this stuff is obsessive. But the moment they can leave, they do escape the system. Like customers buy from someone else, employees leave the company. Sometimes children run away from home if the parenting strategy is too black hat. But generally speaking, if it's something you already want to do, you're actually really thankful. Like some people pay their gym trainers to yell at them and call them weak when they're doing push-ups, right? And it feels bad. But after you're like, hey, thank you so much for pushing me harder than I ever push myself, right? If you can't get yourself to do something and prioritize it, you use black hat on yourself. So again, this is level 1 Octalysis. You think about the core drives, you think about how to drive that behavior. And with that, then we can think about how different experiences have various core drives, left brain, right brain, white hat, black hat. I'm not going to go through the details, it's just an example, just how we can use the framework. You can analyze what they have in each of these core drives and see what they're missing. Facebook has lacks epic meaning colleague, which is why a lot of people think they're like evil empire and they try to boycott it, right? So they actually made people feel like going on Facebook makes the world better, then they'll probably even do even better. Also, another thing is we want to trace these 8 core drives through the player journey, and this is like advanced level 2 stuff, so I'm not going to go in detail, just showing you where it could go. Once you know the 8 core drives, you can start applying to the player's journey. And so we have 4 phases. Discovery phase, which is why do people sign up to it? What motivates them to do that? And that's like marketing, right? Branding and marketing. Onboarding, how do they learn the rules and tools to play the game? Scaffolding, which is people come back once a day, once a week, once a month, or 10 times a day, whatever your design is. And it's, again, what core drives motivate them to do that? And then finally, there's the end game, which is how do you retain your veterans? People have been there for 3 years, 5 years, 15 years. What core drives motivate them to keep coming back, contributing value, being good evangelists, how buying more products, being community moderators, right? That's actually the true value of a loyalty program. And so for every phase, we think what core drive does it. So it could be, hey, curiosity is what makes them sign up. Maybe, the social influence, seeing what their friends are doing is what motivates them, the onboarding, and then scaffolding. They're trying to reach the next level, right? But the key is without these blue areas, there's no motivation. They just drop out. They don't even go to the next phase. And then, if you get even more advanced, level 3 Octalysis, you can apply it to different player types, to different types of people. In this case here, as a random example, we're like, okay, for if someone who likes to achieve, what does their journey look like in these 8 core drives? Someone who likes to explore, how is their motivation changing throughout discovery, onboarding, scaffolding, endgame? What about people who like to socialize? And what about people who like to compete? So anyway, that's the Octalysis framework. When clients come to us and work with us, we have a 5-step design process that applies to the Octalysis framework. Obviously, we're not going to go through any detail on that, but step 1 is a strategy dashboard, which is just really about the relationship between everything about what do you want to improve, who's the player, what's the action, probably the Q&A, I'll probably use a screen. But yeah, so that's the Octalysis framework and how applied to loyalty programs with some case studies. If you want to learn more, feel free to check out my book, Actionable Gamification. It also has an Audible version too. So Kindle, softcover, hardcover, Kindle. Feel free to go onto Octalysis Prime. Literally, most people we hire in our consulting firm come from Octalysis Prime. It's just because, everything I train my team, I share there. So, and people learn everything while they're doing these projects that we charge $100,000, $200,000. So if you learn everything in this platform, you'll be able to create value like $200,000 whenever you want. So yeah, that's the presentation, and feel free to email me at yukai@octalysisgroup.com for the slides or from some questions. I do have some time to stay around. I know there have been some questions here, so happy to answer some for the next 5-10 minutes. So yeah, let's tackle these.
Awesome. So first of all, Yu-kai, thank you for the amazing exploration and explanation of the framework. And thank you for providing this really structured guidelines for everyone who wants to get started with gamification. Before we jump into the Q&A, I have a short announcement. So if you were inspired by the ideas and the framework, but you don't know how to implement it for your product or service, perhaps you lack dev resources, this is where Enable can help. So today we are offering a free loyalty audit for anyone who joined. We will share the link later and we'll share it after the webinar. So if you're interested, please apply. And with that, sure, let's go through all of the questions that we had previously. So the first question from Adam, is this framework oriented to retail or to B2B or both?
Yeah, so definitely both. And most of the time when people talk about gamification, they do think B2C, right? And the key is any project, as long as you can define, we want these type of people to do this type of activity, we can gamify and increase motivation through those 8 core drives. Now, B2B, there's actually, I think, 3 levels, 3 types of B2B. There's B2B in the sense that whatever you're building, your product is trying to sell to the employees of the company, right? And these include like Salesforce, analytics software. And those should be gamified because the employees need to feel driven to use it. I've seen tons of companies hire me to say, hey, we're paying for these expensive software, but none of our employees want to use it. So can you help gamify these employees using the software, right? And so that's B2B to the employee. So it's almost like B2E, business to employees. There's also B2B2C, which is you're selling to a business, but they are showing it to their customers, like a little loyalty program. If you're a loyalty platform, right, you sell B2B to a company, but the company is presenting you to their end customers. So you're a B2B company, but you're more B2B2C. So you obviously have to gamify the experience so their customers will want to use your product. Then there is, in a sense, like true B2B, like just company to company creating game rules. Like you can even think about like carbon credits. That's more like G to B2B, like government to business. Like the government sets the rules about carbon credits. I mean, I don't know if everyone's familiar with that. And I know people who are very familiar with it has controversy with it, but the government sets the rules and the companies themselves play with these rules and they change their behavior, right? So yeah, you can do it for both B2C and B2B. And some examples like Salesforce, they have a yearly conference, right? And they use Core Drive 2 development accomplishment by giving awards to their biggest customers. Like, hey, you're awarded the most innovative company of 2022, right? And these companies are paying Salesforce millions of dollars, and Salesforce just gives them the certificate. It's pretty much free to give them. And now this company's like, yay, they're going everywhere doing marketing. Say, look, we're Salesforce most innovative company of the year, right? And they're doing this marketing promotion for Salesforce. They're probably not going to stop cut the contract with Salesforce anymore in the near future, right? So this is using Core Drive 2 development accomplishment as a business to make another business want to do a bunch of desired behavior. So yeah, so these are a variety of examples that could be both B2B or B2C.
Awesome, thank you. We had another question from Sophie. How to find a balance of gamification that works for different preferences without overwhelming users?
Yeah, so this goes back to level 3 Octalysis. So here you see again, we think about, for every project, we do it 2x2. It goes into the strip, like here, right? We define business metric, we define who the player is. And when we define the player, we have a 2x2 with access to, and every project is different. So like a traditional dating site, it could be one axis being male versus female. The other side could be looking for a soulmate, like want to get married versus dating for fun. So we have 4 quadrants, 4 player types. And then so it could be those 4 player types, right? And for like a employee motivation platform, it could be white collar worker, blue collar workers, one axis, and the other one could be paranoid worker or loose worker, right? And then there's 4. So for each of them, first of all, we think about what core drives motivate them more than others, and we think about their journey, but we also have to make a decision about trade-off. We have to think, all right, should we be like 95 or even 98% amazing for one group and then 40, 40, 40 for the rest of them? We don't care about them. Or do we want to be like 90 and 90 for 2 groups and then 70, 70 for 2 other groups, right? Or it could be 75 for everyone, which is everyone thinks you're mediocre. It's usually not recommended. But it's all about that trade-off. So as your design skill improves, you can increase what we call the yield from this trade-off. Like instead of saying 98, 40, 40, 40, it's like 98, 60, 60, 60. Or instead of 90, 90, 70, 70, it's 95, 95, 70, 70. But design is still about trade-offs. Like when you have a real estate to put a trigger or have emotional imagery, who are you appealing to? You want to be as clear as possible. And so, yeah, if you try to please too many people, then it could feel overwhelming. And if you are very focused on, we want this group to love what we do, and eventually the other groups will be attracted to the platform too, then I think that's usually the best thing.
Awesome. Makes sense. And another question that we received just right now from Jody. My company is a two-sided platform where I need to motivate behavior on both sides. We're really early. What process do you suggest to use? What behavior to optimize on?
Yeah, so here you have 2 user groups. So we have player types and user groups. And what you have is what we call a asymmetrical game. So most games are symmetrical, right? Everyone plays by the same rules, like American, or sorry, for normal football or soccer, like or basketball, everyone plays by the same rules, right? But you have something like American football or hide and seek, 2 sides play with different rules. And so you have like a platform, like one of our clients was eBay. So we have 2 sides where we have sellers and buyers. Some projects we have to motivate teachers and the students. And so they have different desired actions, different rules. And so the user groups are, so player type is that they have the same desired actions. You want them to do the exact same thing, but they're motivated differently. So we're like, okay, achievers, explore, socialize, killers, or whatever you want. But the user groups would be, they just have different desired actions. So for the buyers, you can have, if you want, 4 player types and think about how you're going to work with them. And for the sellers, same thing. So, but I recommend be very disciplined, divide them up for, let's just say, seller and buyer. For the sellers, what are the sellers' desired actions, which is every step they need to do, right? They need to sign up, they need to upload products, they need to upload their photo, they need to do this, they need to respond within 24 hours, they need to have, all that stuff. And list out all the actions they need to do, and then start going through those 8 core drives. How do we motivate them to do these actions with epic meaning and calling, development, accomplishment, empowerment, creative feedback? And then you can move on to the buyers. Same thing, right? The buyers list out all their desired actions, sign up, put in their credit card, their shipping address, blah, 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 blah. And then how do we motivate epic meaning and calling, development, accomplishment? And of course, ideally, those 2 tied together, like, oh, the way they get motivated is because, the sellers are providing this or the buyers are doing that. So that's how I would start working on a project like this.
Well, I hope Jody is satisfied. Yeah, she says thank you. And I think we have like one final question that we can cover today. It's more about the trends and the audiences. So the question is, what are the top 3 differences you see between how 90s kids versus 2000 born users engage with gamified loyalty programs? Anything that really surprised you?
And I'm specifically 90s versus 2000s, like from 2000 2010, or we're just talking about like people who are over 40 versus everyone that's under 40. So like someone can, whoever asked the question, can clarify that a bit. But I will say that from a generational change, I think as we know, people that are in the newer generations, they are looking for more right-brain core drives. They're more experience oriented. Whereas because the older generation, they've been through some difficult, depending on which countries, but it was really about, hey, work hard, perseverant. They're not playing all these games, not so much stimuli, right? And so it's a lot more extrinsic, like, hey, if it's important, if it earns me things, I'll do it. I'll buy a product to own in my home. I want to own collections. Whereas the new generation, they talk about, they like experiences. They like, they don't need to own things. That's why a lot of, instead of like buying songs now, they just have Spotify. They can listen to it whenever they want. And so they want to be able to express themselves more, be more creative. They're social in an interesting way. This is the new generation. We have quite a few projects targeting the new generations, and it's like they're more connected than anyone else, but they feel lonelier than every other generation. So it's like they desperately want true and meaningful connections. Oh, and they want epic meaning. They want their lives to matter. They want what they're doing to have a bigger difference. So that's why they say the younger generation, they're also asking, oh, why should I do this? What is the impact? What is the impact? And the older generation would say, like, why are you asking questions? Do your job. Like when I was younger, we never asked that many questions, but they really need to know the meaning and purpose of what they're doing. And they really like unpredictability and curiosity. They like, and here's one thing I'd like to clarify. People say the younger generation have very low attention spans. Like, oh, they can't concentrate for 5 or 10 seconds. You have to grab their attention. You have to be everything's short. But that is a misconception. If it's engaged, if it's interesting, they can watch like a 3-4 hour movie like the Avengers, right? They could watch Twitch channels, like just some guy playing games for 5 hours, and they could play games. So they can listen to podcasts that are 3 hours long. They can focus and pay attention for a long time. However, the difference is that they give you very little time to prove you're worth their time. So after 5 to 10 seconds, like, okay, this is boring. I'm going to switch. I'm going to watch something else. The older generations, they were like, no, let me stick to it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes before I get really bored and I finally give it, I leave. They're like, no, switch. So you have to prove that you're worth their attention much faster, but it doesn't mean that they do not have a long attention span. So those are things that I think is relevant for when you look at different generations.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your experience, your observations, and thank you, Yu-kai, for being there today. It was a really insightful session. And also thank you for everyone who joined. Feel free to learn about Yu-kai. We'll share some resources in the follow-up emails. And I really appreciate the session.
Thank you, everyone.